And I had this calling. I'm like, I need to help our community. I really want to make sure that they can create memories and feel like they never can do this, because I feel like our families, our community deserve to create memories too, and not feel like they can't, or they can only go to the park, or they can only, and fill in the blank, because only should be taken out of that sentence, and they can create memories. They can travel. They can go on a cruise. They can, whatever they want to do.
Welcome back to Mother's Guide Through Autism podcast. I'm Bridget, your host, and today I'm going to be talking to Jenifer Breaux. And let me just tell you a little bit about her before we start the interview. She's an Army veteran who served almost 3 decades. That is amazing in itself. And she has traveled all over the United States. She has so much experience through service and travel. And so she's taking that gift that she has and the experience of her life, and also taking the experience of having two young men who are on the autism spectrum, and has put this all together for us. And I think it's going to be a great interview. You're going to get a lot of information from Jenifer. And so welcome to Mother's Guide, Jenifer.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my honor completely. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I loved being in the Army. I wasn't sure about it, but as time went on, I'm like, okay, I could do a little bit more. Okay, I think I could do a few more years. And that turned out to be almost half my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really admire that. I don't know that I would be as brave as you, but when you, so I want to know, I want our listeners to know more about you, of course, and then we're going to get into the fact that you opened a franchise of dream vacations called JB Travel Pros, which
Yeah.
we're going to fill everybody in with that. But let's start at the beginning, because you have such an interesting background. Tell us more about yourself and how you came to do what you do.
Well, I loved travel since I was younger. My family and I, we didn't have a lot of money, so we used to camp for our vacations. So it was in a tent, which we didn't know any better. So it was cool. I loved hiking and seeing animals. I really loved animals and catching tadpoles and salamanders. But when I was 9, we got to I grew up in Northeast Ohio, right on the Great Lakes. And so to go to Niagara Falls was about 3 hours away for us. And we traveled there overseas, my first overseas trip, and it was to Canada. And it was just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And we went on the Maid of the Mist. And for those that don't know, it's a boat that goes close to the falls. And you're like, oh, are we going to go in? Oh, no, we're away. And then it goes close again, and then it goes away. And you can feel the mist on it. And then our laughter and our parents' happiness. And we're all together sharing this moment. And then there's another activity where you go over the gorge and you're on this little bucket ride, I guess, and they're shaking the bucket, which I do not enjoy because I'm afraid of heights. But that was my first taste of travel when I was 9 years old. And then I got to do it again at 16. I went to the Bahamas on a study for biology, which that ended up being my major in college. But I just absolutely loved the experience, and different cultures were there, and different languages, different food, the joy of finding something new to do and explore. And so that was really my first time traveling and doing something totally different besides camping. And nothing wrong with that. I did that, and I did it in the Army a lot. And I played war when I was growing up and climbing trees, but I also danced. I danced a lot, and I played instruments, those things that cute kids do. And growing up in a small town, you can do a lot of that. But that's what I did. And I was just like, I love this. I want to do more of this. And so the Army allowed me to do some of that. Some places you don't want to go, like Afghanistan, but I got to explore the continent of Africa and do those things. And yeah, it was just, I'm very, I just can't believe my life. It's been very exciting and very happy, fulfilling.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely sounds like it. And I always, I'm a former educator, so I used to help kids figure out what their passions were
Yeah.
to make education relevant. And so listening to you, you absolutely have a passion for travel. And I also love how you're using it now to help other families through service. So you're an expert for this, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, that background of luxury travel, but also for families with special needs. And I want to talk about your book that you wrote,
Mhm.
Travel is, in capital letters, Possible: How to
Yes.
Travel with Children with Special Needs. How did you come up with this book that is so needed?
So my eldest, he when we brought him into our family, we had been married 17 years, but we weren't around other kids, families with children. You move around a lot. But he was a great traveler. For the most part, he wasn't fussy. He went to sleep at bed at night. But when we brought our youngest into our family, he was 4.5 years old at the time. And we didn't know it, but he had severe ADHD, low spectrum. He is moderately mentally handicapped, moderately. And so it's hard for him to understand concepts, and both have anxiety, which we didn't know at the time. But our first road trip, our little Noah, he screamed for an hour and a half until he went to sleep. He screamed himself to sleep. And it was because it was different smells. He didn't understand what was going on, different bedding, think about like when you go to sleep at night, the smells of your laundry. Is it the bed lumpy or not? The pillow, is it scratchy? The sounds around you. How are the walls painted? Is it a fan, no ceiling fan? So all of those inputs that go into just sleeping.
Mhm.
And it was very, very different and eye-opening for us. And then we had to get up the next morning and do it all over again. So I was like, oh my goodness. So we learned a lot from that first trip, and we did it again. And this time it was to my mom's house, which you would think, oh, it's grandma's house. But again, it's different. And so I started noting these differences and how can we make it easier for our children? How can this change? And so I started noticing these things. And then when that started getting better, then I said, well, let's take a cruise. So in the meantime, with my business, I started taking courses and what would work for clients like our children. And that's when I started gathering all this information. And I had this calling. I'm like, I need to help our community. I really want to make sure that they can create memories and feel like they never can do this, because I feel like our families, our community deserve to create memories too, and not feel like they can't, or they can only go to the park, or they can only, and fill in the blank, because only should be taken out of that sentence, and they can create memories. They can travel. They can go on a cruise. They can, whatever they want to do,
Mhm.
whether it's going to see Mount Rushmore or going to whatever it is that their heart desires or their children wish to do, they can do. So that's how this book started coming to life, was a couple years ago. I was like, I need to help more people.
Yeah, I love it. I wish I would have met you in those early years because Joseph didn't travel well at all. So I felt very isolated
Mhm.
during that time because it was just so stressful to take him. Like what you're saying. I mean, even to family members, it is stressful. So I love the fact that you've written this book. So is it like Travel is Possible? So is it a guide? Can you tell us a little bit more about the book?
Yeah, so it goes through every modality. It talks about going on a land trip. So if you're going to go to a hotel, or if you're going to go, yeah, so for a hotel, let's take that for example. or a cruise. I take you through my experience, right? And I tell you about some helpful tips at the end of the book. So I'm going to give you 5 tips of what you should do to prepare yourself for going on a cruise. I do that same with a resort. So let's say an all-inclusive. Don't go have a room that's close to the pool or the ocean because listen, it's going to have foam parties. It's going to have loud music. I know at night, not every night, but they'll have some function on the beach. You don't want to have that. So hang back. If you want a land package, let's say a Universal, so you can do that, but let's talk about what you should include or what you shouldn't include. Or a lot of times, I know Disney does this. They have a special, I hate to say special, but a line just for our kiddos. So you don't have to go in this long, super long line. I also include in this a social story. So I don't know if you've done social stories for school.
Big fan.
Right, social stories for moving. We've done that because we moved a lot. But why
Yeah.
not a social story for vacation?
Yeah.
So you could include that and include a calendar. My youngest doesn't understand time, doesn't
Yeah.
understand time. I wish she did. It alleviates so much, but at least there's a little calendar in there. It tells them how we're going to travel by air or by car. It shows resort picture. It shows us that we're traveling with them, or grandma has come sometimes. What he can pack in his suitcase. So
Mhm.
he can fill out, we can fill out together. He doesn't really write, but what we can do together, what he can pack, and then some other things he needs to take, like his swim shorts.
Yeah.
So it reads like a book.
That is such great advice. That
Yeah.
is just, I talk about social stories all the time, that really those social stories for transition and prep and stuff like that, that was a game changer for us. So
Right?
yeah, it just like I know Joseph could read before, he could speak. And so it was just a really great tool for us too. And when you have, I have one child that is on the spectrum.
Right.
You have two.
Yes.
Can you tell us, because everybody has a story, and every story has something that is valuable within it. And so would you share how you got your kids diagnosed, or what are some things that we can be looking for? Just more about that.
Sure. So both my kids are adopted. So our youngest one was adopted. We brought him home at 9 months old. They're both international adoptions. And our first place that my husband and I ever lived together was in Korea. And we didn't take any leave. We just traveled around for the whole year anytime we had time off in the country of South Korea. So it's very dear to our hearts. And so when it was time to have a child, that's the only place we could think of. We love the people, the country, and he's a dear. My husband in DC, where we were living, the daycare was on where my husband worked because he had 30-minute commute. Mine was over an hour. And he's like, Jenifer, have you ever noticed that he's different from the other kids? Like even how he's running, and knowing now what some signs are, we should have noticed at 18 months, but we just didn't. The
Yeah.
signs were there earlier. But because he's high functioning, it was a 2-year battle. It was a 2-year battle. However, he had a really good military podiatrist, not podiatrist, pediatrician, who got him into therapy around 3. So he was in occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy. And so he had the therapies going that were working, but trying to get him into school at least was very, very hard for pre-K. But he finally eventually did get into pre-K. And with that, for occupational therapy and speech therapy. But with that comes a special education teacher. And she's like, he really could benefit from this. And so she became our advocate to get him into a special education classroom. Still didn't have the diagnosis, but Took us 2 years of fighting, and we finally got him diagnosed. So that was extremely hard. And then fights came later on when he was in 5th grade to get a fair and equal education in Florida. It was extremely hard. And we
Yes.
ended up filing a state complaint. For our youngest, he came into our home. We adopted him at 4.5 years, and we knew he was autistic and nonverbal. However, when we brought him home, he from China, and we knew he was autistic. He had the international adopt diagnosis of autism. But when you bring him back to the United States, he has to get re-diagnosed over again. And when we were living in San Antonio at the time, there was a long wait list, like 6 to 9 months to get before a 3-person board. But I had to get past the gatekeeper to get to see the developmental pediatrician. And she kept not returning my phone call. So I would just go sit in the office and wait till she would come out. And the ladies there are like, we gave her your number. We gave her, I'm like, oh, it's not you. I know you did your job, but I'll wait till she comes out. She has to go to the bathroom sometime. She has to go home sometime. So I'll be here.
Yeah.
So he finally, and so they placed him in a pre-K that was neurotypical. So he became their pet because it's 26 people. Whereas Jacob had just been in the pre-K kindergarten class, and I think there were 9 kids and 3 people, the teacher and 2 aides. Were
Big
9 people.
difference.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge, huge.
Night and day. Yeah.
Right. So we finally got in to see the developmental pediatrician. He has microcephaly. He has vision issues. He had a heart murmur at the time. 2 months later, he would have been diagnosed with seizures, and they're huge seizures. There was a lot going on there. Later, severe ADHD. He has OCD. He pulls out his permanent teeth. There's a lot going on in this little kiddo. Like I said, moderate mental delays. His IQ is like 50, 54. So he's forever 4, but he's just the kindest kid if it's his way.
Yes.
And then finally we got before the board in the spring. We adopted him and brought him home in July, and he got before the board in February or March. So
So that is for me, it's an inspirational story, but the big thing that I'm getting from it is your determination and your resilience. And I talk to so many moms and so many parents that have kids on the spectrum, and also other diagnoses that come with that.
yeah,
And the fact that you knew that this was going to be a challenge, and you and your husband adopted them. I mean, that just says a lot about you both as human beings. So I just have to take a second and say that, because it's hard. I mean,
it is hard.
it's
Yeah.
tough, you know?
Well, that little kid, he is speaking now, and he doesn't even
Yay.
take a breath and is making up for lost time. And I don't even think that anybody else gets a word in edgewise. But yeah, I thought we had autism, but listen, we didn't have autism. I don't even know what we were thinking. But I think it's a severe ADHD it's very difficult. And
Yeah.
I didn't understand that there was a spectrum for that. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of things the agency didn't tell us, and a lot of his behaviors that were scary, because he couldn't verbalize things. He would bang his head on the floor and on the wall, and it was scary. And thinking that something was, what is he doing? What kind of damage is he doing to
Yeah.
himself? It's
Yeah.
very, very scary.
Yeah.
But he is in a good place most days, like all kids, like every kid in the world. And he's happy, and he's a great helper. And we're
Yeah.
blessed. We're very
Oh,
blessed.
oh yeah. There are struggles and challenges, but at the end of the day, and I can speak for my story too, it is, I wouldn't change. And when I tell people that, they're like, "Oh, you wouldn't." Yeah, struggle, sure, but the good is way, way, way up here,
Yeah,
versus the struggles. And wow, that is a very inspirational story. And with both of these children, you've traveled all over the world
yeah,
with your sons. What were like some of the main challenges, traveling all over the world with them? I know transition, I know getting used to that, but were there
Mhm.
other struggles in addition to that?
So just the travel itself, so getting on and off a plane
Yeah.
is hard. Them not understanding, we allow them some tech and then not understanding that they can't do everything that they want to do. Transitioning to waiting to sitting in their seat. Like that was a huge thing for Noah to understand that he has to sit in his seat, that he has to have a seatbelt on. It's very, very different. I don't think he had ever been in a car before when he came with us.
Yeah.
So we had more struggles with Noah because he didn't understand that. He didn't, you have to sit, you have to have the seatbelt on, you can't get up when you want.
Mhm.
You have to listen to other people. We're not even in control of that, sweetie. We have to listen to other people now. It's a safety thing.
Mhm.
So, and wanting to get up at the end when as soon as we, land, he wants to be out, he wants to be front, he has to get his suitcase right away. And so those are things that we still struggle with sometimes because
Yeah.
he wants to go and he's ready to go.
Mhm.
Time's up and he's ready to go.
Right.
So even use of timers then, because you can't reason with them sometimes. You just have to, so we go back to our timer thing, or hey, we'll let you go first and then mom versus mom will go first. So sometimes that changes it up enough that he'll understand. And he
Yeah.
can be the line leader, like at school, he can be the line leader. So that's a struggle. Sometimes the first night on a cruise can still be hard for him. He's been on 15 cruises.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but still sometimes that first night, because it's still new, it's a
Mhm.
different cruise, but it's still new. So sometimes he's up 10 or 11 o'clock trying to go up on the bunk bed, come down, up and down. So sometimes we'll lay with him for a little bit, ease him into his nighttime routine.
Mhm. Yeah, I think what I noticed at least about my son was the anytime we introduced him to anything new, there was a lot to it, right? A lot of struggle. But then
Yeah,
once he did it and had a reference, then the next time would be a little easier for him.
right.
And so he would, the first time we flew, like what you're talking about, it was just like, oh boy, I that's a whole podcast on its own.
Right,
But
yes.
I totally understand that. And so I know that there are, because I talk to them, there are parents I talk to, and they don't go places because of all these struggles that you and I are
Yeah.
conversing about. So what's your best advice if there's somebody on the fence, what can we help them with?
So there's some things that you have in your arsenal already that you can utilize. Don't you use timers already or in 2 minutes or 5 minutes? Don't you use a rewards-based system already? Well, if you sit for 5 minutes, get your gummies out, get your cookies out, whatever the favorite snack is. Goldfish, we all love goldfish or the colored goldfish. Even though they have snacks on the plane, let them pretend to read because they have pictures in there. Okay, well, when we're up in the air, let's look at what they have already. We get to pick it out, but still take your edibles. And
Mhm.
I know we don't like to use too many edibles with our eldest one, but use them for this trip. Use everything that you can. Don't hold back when it's time for a challenging situation. We also do, I made up a new game the other day. We do games like Thumb Wars, Odds and Evens, rock, paper, scissors. I made up a sword fight the other day with two fingers and we were making a sword fight, just doing this. So think about those things, those old school games that you used to play as a kiddo. And again, in my book, I think I list some of those things. Maybe it was just fidgets. Oh, it was favorite fidgets. Yeah. So get out some fidgets. They save some of those that they haven't played in a long time. Bring those fidgets with you. Always have a little zipper bag, maybe an old cosmetic bag that you haven't used in a while, and put those in the fidget bags. I know they used to have these at the Dollar Tree or Walmart when you checked out. I haven't seen them in a long time, but those dollar packs, and they had
Uh-huh.
magnets in them, they had a coloring book, and they had stickers. I save those, even if they've only colored one page, I've saved those. So I can just grab those. It's lightweight, throw in your purse or your carry-on and use those. But again, use incentives. Okay, you use 5 minutes with your seatbelt, you're going to get some edibles or paper and pen and trace your hand and then trace their hand. Oh, well, whose hand is the biggest? Whose hand is the smallest? Because you can't have your tray table down until they close the door and wheels are up. They have Wi-Fi now that's free if you look at their games. So make sure that app is downloaded. And they also have to have, what do you call that? Wi-Fi, an app for connecting to the internet. What is that, like
Right.
a Google or
Uh-huh.
yeah, Microsoft or whatever. So make sure you have that too. I want to make sure I shout that out. And
Uh-huh.
then you can look through the shows that they're going to watch, or bring the old-fashioned headphones so you can plug those in and you can watch some of those, or play games. You can play games while you're taking off, or
Yeah.
sing a song quietly while you're taking off. Those
Yeah.
are some hints that you can get over those things. Oh, you sang a song with me? Oh, I like Minions. Get some of the Minion gummies, the favorite things that they like. Don't hold back to get them over this hump.
Yeah, I agree. Because I have so many parents that are stressed out about, screen time. And I'm like,
Yes.
there's a great, that's a great tool
Yes,
in situations like that. Maybe, yeah, definitely on a daily basis. We don't want them on a screen all the time.
exactly.
But when they need that visual stim, like on a plane or, any stressful, I'm like, do go for it.
Right.
Don't hold back. I agree with you. Yeah.
I am with the other parents. We monitor their screen time. We monitor if they have a phone. We even monitor how much TV time they get.
Yeah.
I am 1,000% agreed
Mhm.
with every parent. But in this one,
Yeah.
listen, you're trying to get to the place that you're going to. And who knows? They'll come back and say, I rode on an airplane for the first time. So that an event in itself is an adventure for them. So look out when they're doing the safety brief. Oh, let's look at this. Look at this inflatable thing. Oh, that can be something that's taking their attention. So it doesn't have to be the screen right away. There's other things on the plane that you can look at. Oh, I'm going to put my suitcase up here. Talk to them about that. You're talking them through stuff. Because I
Right.
remember when we adopted our first child, Jacob was 9 months old. We had already been married 17 years. And the pediatrician said, it's going to be weird, but he needs to be surrounded by language. So we had to talk through everything. So think about that and just describe everything you're doing.
Mhm. Yeah. It's so good for them. And Joseph now, he's grown, and I am the one who's directionally challenged. And Joseph, when we went to New York City this past Christmas, I didn't know where I was half of the time. And Joseph's like, no, we go here, we go there. I'm like, all right, I just follow you. And sure enough, so I think having that exposure and along with the challenges, I think it's a great growth and development too, because they don't forget that stuff. They are able to apply it however that looks, right?
Agree. And here's the thing, we do at night, we do things that we liked about our day or what happened for our day. And for vacations, like, well, what did you enjoy today? So
Yeah.
that might come up, or specifically something specific. And even on vacation, we're still working towards goals. So our eldest has to work on social goals. And he didn't know how to order something from the pool bar. I mean, his virgin strawberry daiquiri. Because think about it, there's a lot of nonverbal cues that are going on. You wave to the bartender, he'll just kind of do this with his nod of his head. For somebody that doesn't look at you in the eyes or the face, he's going to miss it. And he's going to be overlooked time and time again.
Yeah.
So I have to walk through that and practice that over and over again with him. So even though it's not schools in session, but there's time to work on some things that you don't get to do in your house, or you
Hmm.
don't get to do in school.
Hmm.
And I would also say, you know what we were doing for a while is we keep going back to some of the same resorts, all inclusives, because my son finally got up the courage to go to the coffee shop by himself.
That's awesome.
Isn't that a huge win to
That's a
go?
huge win.
I
Yes. Yes,
know.
yes.
I know. And the social,
Yeah.
first of all, he has anxiety. And so to overcome that, to go by himself,
Yeah.
he took his brother, because my husband and I were in doing something, I forget what, maybe we were getting a massage. He took his brother with them, went to the coffee shop and ordered something to be able to do that. So that's why I say, I know I love exploring different places, but there is an advantage too, to going back to the same place
Mhm.
multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. Is there any other advice? I want to make sure that we mention everything before we get into our final end of this interview. What other advice, or is there anything else you'd like to mention before we go?
So if you're just starting out, this is what I would recommend if you're just starting out and you don't want to get on that plane. That seems a little bit too scary to start out with. This is how I would start. Find a hotel that's about an hour away, not next door, but an hour away. That means that you just can't come back because you got too frustrated. An hour away. Get a couple bags of popcorn, your swimsuits, make sure they have a swimming pool, and your swimsuits, and maybe buy an inflatable Walmart or Target. I don't have stock in either one, whichever you prefer, Amazon, and make a reservation for just one night. Gather up your kids and go to the hotel. You're going to check in around 3 and go to the pool. Everybody get their swimsuits on and go to the pool, blow up your inflatable, and have fun for an hour or two. And then you're making memories in the pool. You get out of the pool, you order yourself a pizza or Chinese, whatever it is. I just say pizza because it's easy
Mhm.
to feed everybody. And it's usually, we have Fun Food Friday in our house. So pizza's a big hit over here. And you're not cooking. Somebody cooked for you. You could bring your juice boxes in, your pop, whatever. So you're spending a little bit of money. And then put on your pajamas or whatever, sit on the floor, sit on the couch, pop that popcorn and watch a movie together. So you're having a movie night, you're having Fun Food Friday, and you went swimming with a little bit of money for the pizza. Then go to bed, get up the next morning, breakfast is on you. While you gather around the breakfast table, talk about what you enjoyed last night together, those
Yes.
memories that you created. And then you get in the car and you go home. So start out small,
Mhm.
do a hotel. If that went okay, or if it was a little shaky, repeat it. Maybe go an hour and a half away so you don't go home. Or maybe go to the same place because you felt comfortable there. Or it was a little shaky, but you know that you can do this, and start slowly. And then slowly build up to 2 or 3 day weekend and you build your confidence, build your kids' confidence. Maybe use that social story. Grab a couple fidgets off my recommendation list. And then from there, you're ready. Maybe do a 2 or 3 night cruise or a resort somewhere in the US or a land package, and start slowly from there. And that's my recommendation to get started. But you must get started for you, for your kids. You guys deserve these memories. You do. You deserve it.
I love that. Great advice. I love starting out small. It just builds not only the experiences, but also the confidence that you actually can. Like, then I love the title, Travel is Possible. How to travel with children with special needs. You can do it. And you just gave some really awesome information. So tell us, where can we find your book and where can we find more about you?
Okay, Travel is Possible is found in the Amazon store. I think it's $8 or $7.99, so it wouldn't be $8, but you have to put the whole title in and my name, and still it doesn't come up. So you have to just hit search again. And it's on Amazon, delivered free to you if you're a Prime person. For more about me, I am JeniferBreaux.com. And I have a free downloadable. So I have ultimate top 10 travel tips for those with neurodiverse family members. So just sign up for my mailing list and ask for that. And there's a packing list inside too. So I love that.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want that?
And I
Um,
have
yeah.
the last week of every month, I dedicate something to blogs. So I write blogs every week, but the last week of every month, I dedicate to our community. So trips to travel to New York, tips for getting on a cruise, things like that.
Wow, this is such great information. Thank you for doing everything that you're doing, all the services and all the great information that you've created for us. I know that any mom listening to this, or any parent, or anybody who knows somebody who's neurodivergent, is going to eat it up. So we will also, when we release this episode, make sure that you have Jenifer's information out there. I want to take a moment and just say, if you enjoyed this episode, please please subscribe to Mother's Guide Through Autism and help Joseph and I spread knowledge, hope, and inspiration. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks.